Hello, I'm Bruce DuPoit. Coming up today on News Talk, Washington heads toward another shutdown showdown. Will federal agencies run out of cash? Will employees be told to stay home? Opponents of Planned Parenthood seem determined to use the budget process to advance their objectives, even though Hill leaders seem resistant. Also, is Metro's sagging reputation on Capitol Hill hurting the agency's push for needed funding? A follow-up to our conversation Friday with the head of the Greater Washington Board of Trade. D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton is here. Her take on these issues and much more straight ahead. Then, swing and a miss. Washington comes up short against the Dolphins in their NFL opener. Tom Threlkeld with what worked and what didn't.
From News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DuPoit.
So great to have you with us as we begin a new week. Thanks, everybody, for your time this time. It looks like we could be headed for another showdown over the federal budget. Agencies run out of money in just a short period of time, and it appears the best we're likely to get is another kick the can down the road, continuing resolution, and even that is no sure thing. That's because conservatives in both chambers, the House in particular, are putting pressure on Speaker John Boehner and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Joining us now, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, a Democrat. She represents the district on Capitol Hill in the U.S. House. Good to have you back.
Always good to be with you, even at your new time, Bruce.
Our new time, 11 a.m. Great to have you here at any time. We have been down this road before, and I'll bet the public has a sense of they'll work it out. They always do. Are you as confident that we'll get through this looming showdown over federal spending without broken China?
I began what has become an annual event. A threat on the part of the Republicans to shut down the government. The only missing feature in forecasting for next year is what will it be this time? Well, this time it's Planned Parenthood. Look for it to come next year. It'll be something else. The reason that I think this could be avoided is because we're headed straight into an election year. There has never been a shutdown that the Republicans haven't been blamed for. And the reason is they're the ones that make the threat. So if you wonder who will get blamed, who is it that says we must have this or the government shuts down? It is always the Republicans. We may, in fact, be up the walls by not getting something. But Democrats don't say shut down the government. I think that we'll be saved by the coming of an election year and by the fact that Boehner and McConnell, particularly McConnell, where so many more Republicans are up, Senate Republican seats are up than us.
It's a much more difficult map for them in 2016 than the very favorable playing field they had in 2014.
It is. So it would be a disaster for him. For the Republicans on our side, it wouldn't so much be because they have such a majority, an election disaster, but it would paint them for what they are and would send them as the House that did it.
But these Planned Parenthood videos are a real issue for some of your colleagues on Capitol Hill. And the issue of spending is out there, too. There's all this talk about exceeding the caps and federal spending generally. How much pressure, how would you characterize the amount of pressure that the Speaker, Mr. Boehner, and the Majority Leader, Mr. McConnell, are under from their right, from budget hawks, from social conservatives, from key members, and not just one or two members of their own caucus?
Well, Speaker Boehner is under renewed pressure, and I thought he could never be under more pressure than he's been under. But there was one member that actually said he was putting a bill on the floor to recall him. That didn't get any traction. Mm-hmm. But there is a caucus, the Freedom Caucus, that is pledged to oppose everything he stands for. That may be as many as 20 members. So he has a problem, but there's a kind of backlash against those 20 members that works in behalf of the Speaker. Because they go off on things that nobody could do anything about even with the supermajority, and they don't have a supermajority, but the large majority they had. I mean, they caused the same trouble on the Iran deal. Now, the Iran deal had already, or virtually already, been assured by what happened in the Senate. So why dance a jig over here? Maybe that's the reason you do. You want to make mischief because you think it won't count.
But a lot of this stuff is heartfelt, and one can understand the belief that if you can't make progress when you have a majority in both chambers and a president who you perceive as being playing out the string, not engaged, on the ropes, whatever you want to say to describe him, from the other party's perspective, if you can't make progress now, well, when the heck do you?
Yeah, well, he's not on the ropes because this
you know
president.
what I'm saying.
This president is the one who's had the good year, and I think that's part of the frustration of the Republicans. But look how what they have done is reflecting itself in the presidential campaigns. Where do these outsiders come from? The Republicans have been in charge most of the last 4 years. Of course, there's been a president. He hardly gets mentioned. These outsiders, both on our side and their side, are in reaction to what doesn't happen in the Congress. But I have another theory, Bruce. I think both sides are in reaction to what people always vote on, and that is what has happened to their incomes. And when people see no progress over a period of time, they look anywhere they can find. All of that is piling up in the House and the Senate as well to bog down what we do and to make the leaders more uncertain about what to do.
You mentioned the Freedom Caucus in the House. I want to share with you and the folks at home something that is on the Washington Examiner website right now. We'll put it on the screen and I'll share it with everyone. Richard Manning, the president of Americans for Limited Government, says the country is in a fiscal death spiral and notes that slow economic growth under President Obama is making it worse. He says the only real card Republicans hold is a willingness to say we're not funding the government if we don't get some changes that we need. Manning's group is tightly aligned with the conservative Freedom Caucus in the House, which regularly bucks its leadership. He and other conservative groups, such as Heritage Action, expressed disgust with GOP leaders' willingness to strike another deal with congressional Democrats and Mr. Obama to work around sequester caps this fall. In late August, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell downplayed talk of a government shutdown and said Republicans have little choice but to negotiate and focus on next year's election. Quote, we just don't have the votes to get the outcome that we would like. How would you peg the likelihood that we get this, not ideal, this continuing resolution, we're told, prevents agencies from being able to plan in a thoughtful way, but it may be the best we can do? What are the odds of a CR that takes us some distance into the future?
Well, notice they didn't mention Planned Parenthood. They're mentioning something where they've been winning, the sequester. What they're concerned about is the president has said that if these caps continue, where nothing gets funded in the United States, even the highway bill, I'm on that committee, the transportation bill, then he is not going to sign off on the budgets that have been passed. The House didn't even get it passed. But there would be all the budgets before him. And so this is really about the sequester, not about Planned Parenthood. Now, why would they've won? They won the sequester for continuing years. So what is it they're saying? They want to win the sequester yet again, or they shut down the government? I think the president has made clear, and that is clear, he is not signing these appropriation bills as they are. So they either, the House and the Senate, get together and do something with the caps, or there's going to be some kind of continuing resolution.
Those Planned Parenthood videos were so edited, it's impossible for anyone anywhere on the spectrum of the issue of choice abortion, to gauge what went down in those encounters with the people from Planned Parenthood. How do you view it, given our inability to sort of see and evaluate everything?
Yeah. The edited videos, of course, are what make what people saw breathtaking, because they haven't seen the whole thing. And by the way, there's an injunction against showing that video anymore because it was illegally done without the permission of the parties. But that's not the worst part of it. What was edited, of course, and I have nothing to say good about what was said. But what was edited, of course, was how these aborted fetuses are used with permission of people who have reluctantly decided to have an abortion, having a legal abortion. Planned Parenthood wants to do something legal. They want to make sure that there is that progress with Alzheimer's disease, with other diseases have been very difficult for us to move ahead, continues with the permission of the Congress of the United States that does say that we can use the remains of fetuses at whatever stage for this purpose. And it comes to abortion, if you get the permission of the person involved, then it can be done. And thus progress is made on the basis of something that is legal. But it's as if your doctor were to sit down and to tell you what happens when he takes your appendix out. If he were to describe it in detail, it would sound really terrible, but it's perfectly legal. An abortion is not an appendix. You know, people who are right to life see that as a live human being, and thus they are disgusted by hearing about it, much less seeing anything that tells them about what happens. Yes, that said, no one has been able to show that Planned Parenthood did anything illegal. The video is so disgusting that it cannot be shown. You notice you don't see it any longer. And it certainly isn't something that anybody would shut down the government of the United States over. You can try to pass bills to say you can no longer use tissue from fetuses for deathly diseases if you want to, and to try to get that through, but you can't shut down the government over there. You can't keep the whole country from operating over something with which you agree, even if you disagree on profoundly moral terms.
Talking with Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. We will take a quick break here. Back, though, with more News Talk right after this.